The Atlanta Falcons should bench Kirk Cousins this season, but not this week. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. Make sure that you listen to every episode of Locked On NFL on Amazon Music. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today as I am every Wednesday by Locked On NFL expert, the brain, Luke Braun. On today's episode, we're going to play a little game of who do you trust? Do you trust the Eagles or Lions? Do you trust the Chiefs or the Bills? But we'll start talking about the Atlanta Falcons, who are currently in a free fall, and whether they should bench Kirk Cousins. Before we dive in, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the second half of the season, or really the final third of the NFL season, with a big return on FanDuel. New customers could place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Atlanta Falcons have lost 2 games in a row. They got destroyed by the Denver Broncos. Then they come home off their bye and get beat once again and only score 13 points by against the Los Angeles Chargers. Kirk Cousins throws 4 interceptions. And that has started the conversation about whether or not Kirk Cousins should be benched. My guy, Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons, doesn't think that's a realistic thing.
Do the Falcons make the change from Kirk Cousins to Michael Penix this week against the Minnesota Vikings? And the answer, of course, for anybody who, has a clue, knows the answer is no, right? Kirk Cousins did not play well on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. But there's no real reason for the Falcons to make a quarterback change at this point in the season. We have 2 more games to be played that I think will determine if that is a realistic conversation that we will see Michael Penix by the end of the season in terms of the quarterback switch. But that will have to be played out over the next 2 or so weeks, because the main reason is the Falcons are still in playoff contention. And as long as they remain in playoff contention, there's no reason to think that they should be making a quarterback change. And you look at this specific weeks in this matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, and you're going to throw a rookie out there in his first NFL start against a Brian Flores defense. Like, I don't know if that's a great strategy. And, given Kirk's background from practicing against a Brian Flores defense, he probably gives you a significantly better chance.
Well, Luke, as somebody who covered Kirk Cousins for a long time and someone who covers the Minnesota Vikings, who will be playing the Atlanta Falcons this weekend, I'm just giving you a blank canvas, man. What are your thoughts on the Kirk Cousins situation?
It's interesting that Aaron says, you can't do it against Brian Flores. I get the idea, because the Brian Flores defense is particularly difficult to read pre-snap, right? Like, they do so much pre-snap disguising, and it's not exactly a get your feet wet kind of moment, right? You're not exactly easing yourself into the pool. But you can't play scared, man. If you think that Michael Penix is the better quarterback, you got to put him in. And I don't think the Falcons do think that, so they're not going to do this. But that's got to be what it comes down to. I'm an Occam's razor guy when it comes to this stuff. When you're in, the Falcons still lead their division, right? You are in the driver's seat for a home playoff game. Put in the guy you think is better. And knowing Kirk Cousins, as well as I do, this too shall pass. This is the whole thing with Kirk Cousins. It always has been. Whether he is playing lights out football like he was in October, or horrible football like he has the last couple weeks, this too shall pass. He is a streaky quarterback. He's up and then he's down. Wherever you feel you are at with him right now, it does not last. He's just a week-to-week guy like that, and sometimes he just isn't feeling the rhythm and the timing, and things are coming out late on him. I think that led to a couple of the interceptions against the Chargers. Things were just floated on him. I'm a little concerned about the pick 6 that got jumped, because that one looked like it floated on him, and that now I'm getting worried about if he's old or if his Achilles okay or whatever. I'd have to look closer. But knowing I covered Kirk Cousins for 6 years on Locked On. this too shall pass. It never lasts. It is never a permanent state of affairs. And sometimes you want it to be a permanent state of affairs and you don't get it to be. But when it's bad, it bounces back. So if I were the Falcons, I certainly wouldn't do it unless Mike Penix is lighting it up in practice and you're going, oh my God, we got to get this kid in, and it's a Carson Wentz situation.
Yeah, and that aspect of what's happening in practice, we can't really know about. You know what I mean? So the other aspect of the conversation, not just how bad Kirk is playing, but how good does Michael Penix look? That's obviously huge here. But for me, I think one of the aspects of why you can't bench Kirk Cousins, or why they'll probably not want to do that, is because it's going to be impossible to trade him this offseason. So what are you going to just let his money burn on the bench next year? And look, if Penix is...
Maybe he hangs him up.
If Penix is
that
much better, no way Kirk Cousins is passing up that money. I refuse to believe that. But if Penix is that much better, then maybe you have to, and it's not about the money anymore. It's about the team. But I just don't think that that's a realistic scenario for the Falcons, and especially this week, like you said, with Brian Flores' defense, and obviously the emotional ties. Selfishly, I want to see Kirk Cousins against the Minnesota Vikings. That's just a good story, and I'm in it for the narrative. But let me just say this. If you're Atlanta, and you lose this game and Kirk Cousins looks terrible against the Vikings, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are tied with you at 6-6 at the top of the division. And Tampa Bay has won 2 games in a row. And Tampa Bay this week plays the Raiders. I believe that it is. They play the Raiders. So if Tampa Bay beats the Raiders and the Falcons lose to the Vikings, I think you play Michael Penix, because then you take on the Raiders itself. And then you play the Giants and the Commanders and the Panthers. Those are all winnable games for a rookie quarterback to get ready to go for that potential home playoff game that you may still have a chance to get. You cannot let the season slip away watching Kirk Cousins play terribly. So if Kirk Cousins plays awful in this game against Minnesota, you are in a prime position to bring in Michael Penix. And with the situation they put themselves in, you could get a lot of value out of playing Penix early. I would go to Michael Penix if Cousins looks awful, and if you lose the division lead this week.
I think you're getting grass is always greener. I think it's so easy to imagine the unknown being better than the guy that just put up 4 interceptions, but it can always get so much worse. I have learned this lesson a few times the hard way. It can always get worse. If they haven't put Penix in yet, they don't think that he's better than this. And that's the actions speak louder than words.
I think there is another scenario where we don't want to have egg on our face for signing a terrible contract for Kirk Cousins coming off the Achilles.
Too late for that.
Stupid.
You're not doing anything about that.
Well, I mean, if you bench Kirk Cousins, then it does confirm that was a stupid decision. And I think there's more to it than just football when these decisions are being made. So I would say
if that's the case, then they're doomed no matter
relations.
What. If they're starting to make decisions based off PR, whether those decisions are right or not, then that's an organization that's due for collapse. But I guess I prefer to believe in them a little bit more than that. And I see another 6-6 Kirk Cousins team. I've seen this play out a million times. He'll get it back. It's fine.
Well, who do you think ultimately wins the division then? The Buccaneers or the Falcons?
Well, because the Bucs got swept by the Falcons, it's really hard. So the Falcons get a tiebreaker there. So even if the Falcons are also still ahead by a game, right? So the Bucs can get a whole game back and still be out of it and need another one. They probably need the Falcons to lose one to the Giants or to the Raiders or to the Panthers. I don't think the Bucs, like if the Falcons are 3-2 down the stretch, they lose to the Vikings, they lose to the Commanders, they win Panthers, Giants, Raiders, right? That probably feels chalk. It feels really hard for the Bucs to keep up. So I feel like the Falcons are still very much in the driver's seat as long as they take care of business against some of the have-nots of the league.
If they go and lose on Monday Night Football to the Las Vegas Raiders after losing to the Minnesota Vikings,
that's on Monday Night Football?
Yes.
Oh my God.
They better put
ESPN.
Michael Penix in for the last 3 weeks of the season. That's all I'll say about that. But with that being said, we got more.
Once you're eliminated, yeah, sure, put the rookie in.
Who do you trust? Conversations. Do you trust Kirk? Do you trust Michael Penix? Do you trust the Falcons at all? Those are all great questions and great answers. But let's look at some of the actual good teams in the NFL, like the favorites in the NFC and the AFC. It's Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. somewhere between the store and then your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at 15. That's 15 bucks a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just 15 bucks a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Cut your wireless bill to 15 bucks a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower at 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest and most fun way to play daily fantasy sports. That's why they have over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. All you got to do on Prize Picks is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. That's why I love Prize Picks, because it's just so simple and it's so much fun. Again, you pick 2 to 6 players, and you just say whether they're going to do more or less than the Prize Picks projection. Justin Jefferson, 83.5 yards. Patrick Mahomes, 1.5 passing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, 1.5 total touchdowns. Like, again, you just pick 2 to 6 players and say more or less. It can take less than 60 seconds to pick your lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Luke, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Atlanta Falcons situation, and we might disagree on what they need to do, but that's perfectly okay. Now we need to look at some of these good teams, and I got a feeling the disagreements will continue.
Let's
Luke,
go.
let's start with the AFC first. The Kansas City Chiefs are struggling. The Buffalo Bills look incredible. Right now, as things stand, who do you trust more to get to the Super Bowl, the Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills?
The team that's just steamrolling everybody right now. It's the Bills. They're a Death Star again. It's 2022 Bills all over again. Early 2022 Bills before they got all hurt.
Well, you know, what I would say is the Bills look good. The Bills look great. They've looked great in the regular season before. But I still trust Kansas City. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. They are in a down period. They're in the regular season malaise after winning 2 Super Bowls, and we're doing this thing again where, they look bad on the DVOA, and, you know, their games are rough, and they're barely winning, and all this stuff. To me, this is just a multi-time champion being bored with the regular season. And now they're about to get Hollywood Brown back, which Hollywood Brown isn't some, miraculous
that doesn't
top
move
10
the needle
wide
for me at
receiver
all.
or anything, but it does move the needle for me because they need people who can win on the offensive side of the ball. They're bogged down on offense. They haven't had a ton of explosive plays. And I think you add in Hollywood Brown, and then maybe you get DJ Humphrey out on the field to play left tackle. And I think the Chiefs are going to be, to me, it's very similar to the left tackle that they picked up midseason. Wasn't last year, it was the year before that, I do believe. I can't remember exactly who it was, but they've been struggling with that left tackle position for quite some time now, and they just continue to find a way to solve the problem by the time that the games matter. So you ask me who I trust more. I know that the Bills look great, but I'm still rolling with the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think it feels to me as though this sort of like this Chiefs trust is earned because of playoff reputation. Right, but it feels like to have this opinion, we have to throw out the entire 2024 season and just assume that nothing that has happened so far matters. I can't do that. I can't ignore what the Buffalo Bills have done. Yeah, I can't do that. We've seen that we're in week 13. And while last year's Kansas City Chiefs were, this was the worst Chiefs team yet to win the Super Bowl, this team is still yet worse. They have been more inconsistent. All of those Chiefs players you just mentioned, I feel like the Bills have a better equivalent. That offensive line, what that offensive line just did to a famously physical San Francisco 49ers team in the snow that was violence. What they did to them. How am I not to trust that? And upstarts like Khalil Shakir, getting their rookie wide receiver, Keon Coleman, his name was escaping me, getting him going. And obviously Josh Allen in full-on Death Star mode, running away with the AFC East, clinched it December 2nd, 5th year in a row. I don't know who goes into Buffalo and wins. And at this point, I think the only reason to still look at the Chiefs and say, oh, they're in the driver's seat for the AFC Super Bowl bid is that they're currently still sitting in the 1 seed and they haven't quite lost enough games yet. But there's 5 weeks left to go and the Bills have the tiebreaker. So you need to get one back on them. I think the Bills can get one back on them. And then the Chiefs have to go into Buffalo, into an increasingly angry Buffalo Bills team, an increasingly physical Buffalo Bills team that has it right in the trenches this time. It's so hard for me to look at anybody in the AFC and say, yeah, that's the team that's just going to like roll into Buffalo and win. So maybe if you get to play it in Arrowhead, but are you going to get to play it in Arrowhead? Are we sure? Are we winning out, Chiefs? 16-1 Chiefs? Is this that team?
With the way that they're playing right now, it is hard to imagine they will win out. They play the Chargers on Sunday Night Football this week, then the Browns, then the Texans, then the Steelers, then the Broncos. I think they certainly could get knocked off with any of those matchups. I mean, maybe not the Browns, but hey, if you get the good version of Jameis Winston that God likes instead of the Jameis Winston that God lets throw pick sixes, maybe you do win that game. It's hard to tell how God feels about Jameis
I've heard
Winston
enough of Jameis Winston this year. So.
Yeah, I saw your tweet on that you're tired of hearing about the Cleveland Browns. Understandable.
Enough of this 3-9 team. Okay, go do something. Try winning a game, and then I'll pay attention to you again.
Really, the only thing that concerns me with the Chiefs is that left tackle position. And actually, Ryan Tracy from Locked On Chiefs talked about the predicament that they're in right now and maybe what they should do at left tackle.
So it brings you to a two-man choice. Either the newly acquired veteran DJ Humphries, who we don't even know if he's playable in terms of football shape. Can he go 60 snaps? I have no concept of that right now. Or Kingsley Suamataia, who obviously had his confidence destroyed from everything that we've heard, and I certainly understand that, and wasn't able really to recover it in spot duty throughout the season. Right. I'm leaning towards Kingsley, though, because I got to tell you, I'm not really sure that I like the way that was handled the first time. And because of that, yes, you're going to face Khalil Mack this week, but you got Garrett next week, and you're going to have pass rushers the next 2 weeks that can attack you with speed. I need the most athleticism out there in the lower body that I can get. And so I'm leaning that direction.
I understand the athleticism argument, but I think they picked up DJ Humphries for a reason. And I would go with the veteran who has played in the NFL for multiple years and has handled different edge rushers when you're in a situation like Kansas City over a rookie second-round pick who, has good talent, like you said, good athleticism there, but I'm just not trusting a rookie in this situation. So I go with DJ Humphrey, and I think if they get DJ Humphrey in there, just playing, it could be even slightly below average level left tackle play. And I think you give Patrick Mahomes time, he's going to be able to win you football games, whether it's now or in the playoffs. So I would go with DJ Humphrey as soon as you possibly can. And Ryan also talked about in the episode, like, is DJ Humphrey in football shape? You can be in good shape as a human being, but is it in football shape? Right. So, like, once DJ Humphrey is in comfortable shape, I think that's who you got to roll with going forward.
Yeah, one of the many advantages of somebody like Mahomes is when you are protecting his blind side, you don't have to stonewall the guy. Some quarterbacks, you have to stonewall the guy. But with Mahomes, you can ride him up past the quarterback pretty easily. Mahomes is great at stepping up. If he wants to cut inside you, you can ride him past the quarterback. You can use a lot of different tools to recover yourself from bad positions. So I kind of like, if they do put in the rookie, I think that's an endorsement, right? Okay, we think that you're better than a guy that just has veteran experience, right? We think you're worth more than veteran experience. There's something to that. But it also is, hey man, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do the most. The same thing applies to Humphries, but you can, learn on the fly a little bit, make some mistakes, we'll learn from it, as long as you're on your recovery game and you're not giving up instant blindside, strip sacks and stuff. That's becomes the standard, and it's one of the many luxuries the Chiefs have.
Yeah, I think if you get a little bit improved left tackle play, you get another weapon out there for Patrick Mahomes, and it gives them just a little bit of a bump they need to get the job done. So I get your trust in Buffalo. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. But now we go to the NFC side where the Philadelphia Eagles look like they could be the best team in football, and the Detroit Lions, boy, they are banged up. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the final third of the NFL season, and boy, it is sad to say that, but that's how quick the season has gone with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet bet $5, not $150, bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Luke, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins situation. We talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Now I want to move it over to the NFC. Before we do, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first to listen each and every day. Make sure that you check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. Some great content coming up for you there. But the Philadelphia Eagles got a big-time win against the Baltimore Ravens. They were down 9-0. They had some balls not quite bounce their way, and they still found a way to really dominate that game through halfway through the second quarter all the way to the end, despite a garbage time touchdown
missed kicks,
from the Baltimore Ravens and some missed kicks, absolutely, which for a lot of that game, they were down by way more than 7 points, but Justin Tucker surely not helping the Ravens right now. But with that, from the Eagles side of things, right now, I mean, it is fair to say that they look like, if not the best team in the NFL, the hottest team in the NFL. And our guys over at Locked On Eagles were pretty happy after the win.
And, Gino, this was a statement win. Look, the Philadelphia Eagles, they've beaten some good teams this year. The Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love, the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford and the LA Rams, Jaden Daniels, the Washington Commanders. Like, they've proven already they're the cream of the crop of the NFC East. In the NFC, I'm willing to go as far, and I don't know if I'm a prisoner in the moment here. Maybe you can tell me if I am. But after seeing the defense, the special teams unit, and then the offense take over in the second half, I don't know if there's an NFL team that has a roster this complete, playing this in sync, to defeat a team like this with 2 MVP candidates and to completely keep Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in check. I'm convinced they're maybe right now the best team in football. Like, that's how good they look.
Now, best team in football, that's a conversation, absolutely, and one that I had on Monday's show. But really what the Eagles need to be is the best team in the NFC. So right now, Luke, who do you trust to make it to the Super Bowl, the Eagles or the Lions?
So Lions fans are going to love this. Longtime Lions fans, listeners to Locked On NFL know that I was filled with haterade, a couple years ago, but when they were anointed before they had really proven it, right? And they came out, 2023, and they proved it very well. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't extend that same thing. I don't need to speculate on what will happen before I see it. And as banged up as the Lions are, since week 8, which was, I think, a couple weeks after they had lost Aiden Hutchinson, they're far and away the best defense in the league. Since week 10, more injuries mounted. Far and away the best defense in the league by EPA per play is the stat I'm using. And the margin is insane. The difference between first and second place is the same as the difference between the fifth place team I'm sorry. There's kind of 6 defenses, but it's a significant chunk better in the last 3 weeks. So they are still a fantastic defense. At a certain point, you will reach a tipping point, right? As the injuries mount. But I don't know where it is, and we certainly haven't seen it yet. I think this Thursday night game against the Packers will be big, right? The Packers offense is playing well. That's a big challenge for a banged up defense, and maybe we hit that tipping point. But until I see it, I am absolutely comfortable saying the Lions. And when it's no longer true, I'll change my tune on that, but I'm not going to do it early.
See, that's how I feel about the Chiefs. When it's no longer true, when they lose, then I'll lose my faith. But looking at
with the Chiefs, you can't say you basically aren't going to change your opinion on anything until the playoffs. Then you're just going to kind of ignore the whole regular season.
Yes, okay. I am 100%.
Because I'm not ignoring the regular season. The evidence continues to pile in favor of the Lions despite the injuries.
Well, the injuries are the big thing, and it's kind of crazy how many injuries they have, and you wonder where that tipping point comes in. And my guy Matt Derry from Locked On Lions went through all the injuries that they are dealing with.
Man, oh man, these Lions injuries, especially on defense, really starting to pile up. How many injuries? When do we hit the breaking point here with the injuries? This is ridiculous, the amount of guys that are not going to play Thursday against the Packers. You look at the injuries, you hear that Josh Pascal and Levi Onwuzurike probably aren't going to play this week. I mean, go back to August. John Kaminsky, done for the year. September, Marcus Davenport, done for the year. October, Kyle Pecco, done for the year. Aiden Hutchinson, out for the year. Jalen Reese-Maybin, injured reserve. Derek Barnes, out for the year. Alex Anzalone, out for most of the year. Ife Melifonwu, injured reserve. Ennis Rakestraw, injured reserve. Levi Onwuzurike, hamstring problem, probably not playing this week. Josh Pascal, knee injury, likely won't play this week. We'll see. Malcolm Rodriguez, injured reserve, done for the year. Mekhi Wingo, injured reserve knee. Carlton Davis, possible for this week. This sucks, man. That's a lot of guys.
That is a lot of guys. And I mean, at some point that just adds up. So for me, it comes down to like which team is healthier, which team is playing better football right now. And I lean both of those to the Philadelphia Eagles. And at the end of the day, I think the Philadelphia Eagles have more guys. They just have more studs that they can go to. So I am going to ride with the Eagles on this one. It's been a full show of disagreements, Luke.
Yes, I love it. I don't want to disrespect the Eagles too. I mean, they are peaking right now. They're playing fantastic football. But listen to November, right? Most of those injuries happened before November. Listen to this is the Lions defensive November. The Packers scored 14 on them. Texans 23 on them. Jaguars 6, Colts 6, Bears 20. Does that look like a second team defense to you? And I think like this is a testament to Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell and the coaching staff for figuring out a way to make all those backups work. The backup Lions defense is a good defense. The starting line defense was incredible. The backup Lions defense is a good defense. And like a tipping, like these things do tend to fall off of cliffs. So we will be watching for the cliff. The cliff may be coming, but maybe it isn't. Maybe they're just got a lot of depth. Maybe they're just killing it. With these undrafted like edge rushers.
Yeah, I just think at some point when you play playoff football, all those injuries have to matter, and they usually catch up to you in the worst spot. But either way, we got some great.
Maybe not at home in the dome.
Yeah. They're going to play the whole playoffs probably at home, so it'd be very interesting to see if they're able to withstand that. But some excellent football games coming up throughout the back half of the season. Very excited for Thursday night football, and we're going to be talking about that on tomorrow's Locked On NFL with me and the Data Queen, Michelle Majuk. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. For me, your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, and my esteemed co-host, the Brain, Luke Braun. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And as I tell you every single episode, stay safe out there.